Local democracy has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. People have different expectations and different attitudes about government and community. In most places, there seems to be general dissatisfaction with the way democracy works. Citizens often vote for candidates promising change, though there seldom seems to be any consensus on what that change should entail.
A vote for me is a vote for change.
Here we go again.
There are heightened levels of conflict between citizens and government over issues like zoning, policing, school reform, budgets, and taxation. When local officials try to make decisions without public input, they are often opposed by angry residents.
Drop your gloves. Oh, yeah!
And in some situations, citizens are in conflict with one another. Meanwhile, new technologies are revolutionizing how citizens interact with their governments and each other.
I've got 87 Facebook friends and 93 followers on Twitter.
And you can't tie your shoes.
To prevent or resolve local conflicts and to tap into the new talents and capacities of citizens, all kinds of local leaders are trying to involve residents in one way or another.
We need you for Neighborhood Watch. Help us elect the next president. Are you engaged in your child's education? Help us pass our school bond issue. Our city budget is in the red. What do you want us to cut? Help us work for racial equity. Pressure your congressman on health care reform.
Some of these opportunities just aren't compelling to ordinary citizens, and they make getting involved particularly difficult and daunting for people who have child care responsibilities, or who live below the poverty line, or have to work more than one job, or are recent immigrants, or do not have a high school education, or whose first language is not English.
Est-ce que tu connaissais de réunion?
Quelle réunion?
Est-ce que tu parles le français là?
Non. Est-ce que tu parles l'anglais?
Non.
Other efforts to get citizens involved are more fruitful and compelling, and they are able to reach a broader range of people, but they still tend to be centered on the needs and goals of the involvers rather than the involved. We know that when communities do manage to increase civic engagement, there are many important benefits. Productive engagement can resolve conflicts, boost economic growth and vitality, lead to smarter, more effective public policies, capitalize on the ability of citizens to help solve public problems, and give people a stronger sense of political efficacy and belonging to community, a feeling our founding fathers would have called public happiness. Public officials, funders, and other local leaders need to take stock of these changes and think more carefully about what people want out of their democracy. This is an important and difficult conversation.
What kind of democracy do you want?
What's democracy?
We can at least point to a number of likely ingredients for robust local democracy. One is a strong tradition of using inclusive, deliberative processes to make decisions and solve problems. A second ingredient to consider is the support and legitimacy of government, not only the facilitative leadership of public officials, but better legal frameworks for citizen participation. A third likely ingredient is the presence of a thriving local online community. Another potential ingredient is the power of young people. Students and young adults can be inspiring leaders, organizers, and facilitators.
I am a future leader.
Oh, I can't wait.
And parents are much more likely to participate if their young people are highlighted or involved. And finally, some of the most basic but critical ingredients for stronger democracy are food, music, the arts, and other qualities that the Knight Foundation's Soul of the Community study refers to as social offerings. It may be that if we take stock of these democratic ingredients and find ways to combine them and build on them that reflect local strengths and needs, that we can devise new recipes for engagement that work for both citizens and government, both the involvers and the involved. If so, those stronger, more fruitful, and fulfilling local democracies will help us strengthen community, make decisions, and solve problems at all levels of society.
Yeah, I realize I have a time window here. I have to kind of do this kind of stuff when my kids are cute and pliable, and as soon as they become sullen teenagers, it'll be all over. So why don't we take just a couple minutes and just talk. In fact, I think I might have a question here. Sorry. Don't look at the screen and get dizzy. Okay, so talk to your neighbor or other people at your table. Does this kind of, what you saw in the movie or all the things we've been talking about with the slides, kind of reflect your experience? How does it or doesn't it? And what might you kind of add or change about that? And we'll come back in a few minutes and kind of get some of your thoughts. Is if I start talking and keep talking until all the separate conversations have finally kind of bubbled down. And see, this, that was actually not too bad. Didn't take too long. So, so could I hear just a couple, comments? What you see in the movie or what you've kind of heard tonight? Does it reflect your experience, or how is it different? Really? Go ahead.
It reflects it from the standpoint that we talked about. You can always find a policy or a rule to cover you when you want to do something. and it takes all the people who are interested in changing everything to come together and challenge those power brokers and say, we don't care about that. How do we change this? How do we get this thing overturned? It was created by men and women or somebody at some time, so it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
It's in the way of us getting what we want.
Sure. Okay, good. Other comments or? Good.
First of all, I turned around to discuss the issue, and discussing it with the same people I came here with.
Whose fault is that?
And from what I'm hearing through all this whole process, it's about interest groups, coalition building. You come together long enough till that trust is gone, then you start over. And then when you come to interest groups, it's always about the money. Power. The older people had the money and the influence and everything. If you could comment on that, that's what I think. This whole process.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm not quite sure I understood the point, but I think unless you kind of are proactive about. Oh, go ahead.
It's like no one will come together till someone gets shot unjustly in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
They gathers everyone together for a few months, and then
their
trust is gone again, and you back into the same thing.
Right.
One.
Yes. Yeah. So.
And ours, this is a coalition building for a little while, or what interest groups have the most influence in this situation.
Right. And we need to stop just doing engagement around the crisis of the moment the decision, the controversial decision of the moment, the plan of the moment, and it needs to be something that we figure out how to kind of embed in a much more sustained way in the way communities work, not only because it can help us deal with crises and decisions and all that kind of stuff, but also because it has other kinds of benefits. Okay, I think I'm with you there. Go ahead. Who's got the... Run, Susan, run.
Well, first of all, you cut us off when we were just getting warmed up. One of the things that I have seen, and it goes back to one of your premises in terms of having diversity in those groups or whatever, we oftentimes, particularly as adults, we sit down and make decisions about kids,
Yeah.
and we don't involve them at all in the process. And then we're upset when they don't buy in to whatever we have put together.
Yeah.
And most of us, we think of our childhood very fondly, and we go back and we think about the things that worked. And I was at Russ's meeting, and I mentioned to the group there that for me and kids my age, all you had to do was put out the carom tables and some ping pong, and we were good to go.
Right, right.
Now, you can't do that with kids today, and you have to have them engaged in the process if you want them involved in the activities that you're talking about.
Yep.
And with the community learning centers, I think it's critical that our children not only are educated there, but also receive other training, other things in the evening, because when they're not busy, then they're into all kinds of other things that are chewing up tremendous amounts of tax dollars and effort on the part of folks. And a lot of it is just plain boring.
Yeah.
And we need to be thinking about them, but we need to have them engaged in the process as we're talking about developing programming for them. And we also, when we have them in a group, we have to make them talk, because they often will defer to the adults.
Right.
But it's just important to get that diversity of thought and engagement, particularly if you expect the outcomes that
Right.
you want. You expect them to buy in.
Yeah, they have to feel like they are owning their education, their upbringing, that they have a say, and that they're respected and heard. That's just as important for them, perhaps more important for them than it is for adults. Absolutely, and that's and you're really not only is it important on that level, but you're really overlooking an enormous asset, a civic asset for organizing, for recruitment, for facilitation, for bringing people out to meet. I mean, young people can get things.
Energy.
Exactly. There's a project in a little town, Idaho, called Kuna, Idaho. The people trying to get this going were a committee of adults in the community. Luckily, there were 3 high school students in this committee. Adults got bogged down about who was going to fund it or who are they going to do first or whatever. Students got frustrated with that, went out, organized the process at the school, at the high school. 200 kids involved in this process. Terrific conversations happening about what they want to see happen at their school, in their community. Shamed the adults into getting their act together and actually organizing a really good process. So yeah, they're terrific talents and assets in their own right. Yeah, okay. Let me just go one more here then. Go ahead.
Well, one thing that we spoke about is that whatever process we put in place, it can't be so rigid to where it doesn't respect the unique cultures and histories from the individual communities that make up.
Yeah.
What works on the west side may not work on the east side. So we have I know we have to have a consistent structure, but it can't be so rigid that it doesn't respect the unique culture of the individual parts of our community.
And I think what you said there is an important principle at a bunch of different levels, a principle of kind of malleable structure. You even see that like in the way a small group works. You want to give people malleable structure in the form of a discussion guide or an agenda that's something that they can go by, but something that they can change and adapt if they want it. And I think the same is true kind of at the level of the organizing, kind of a school or in a neighborhood. You give them some suggestions, some support, some structure that they can go by, but also the kind of you're giving them the freedom to add stuff to it and to change it and to kind of to adapt it to their community. So I think that's absolutely right.